Okay, this is our first brief introductory video for Europe. And what I want to do in this very short video is kind of contextualize the region. And we're going to be talking about Europe and the Russian realm here, in a sense, in terms of where they are relative to North America. And I think it's always important to understand, in terms of the physical context of a region, where it fits into the world in terms of latitude. Remember that latitude strongly governs climate, and in terms of the seasonal variations that we see in climate, this is really important. So if we look at North America and the United States, the important idea here is that, in a sense, the United States lies approximately between 30 degrees north. Florida sticks a little bit down from there. And if we think about the Canadian border here, between about 30 and about 50 degrees north. And in fact, Minnesota lies just below 50 degrees north. Now, if we put that in the context then of Europe, let's slide over a little bit. You'll notice here's Spain, and that's the southernmost tip of Spain. And over here is the boot in terms of Italy and the Greek Isles here. Europe essentially lies, for the most part, above 40 degrees north. And you'll notice that that's really where we are in terms of Pittsburgh and in Pennsylvania. And so all of France, most of Italy, all of the United Kingdom, all of Germany lies far north of where we are. We can see that in a little more detail here. Again, if we look at, here is the Iberian Peninsula, this is Spain, the United Kingdom here, and all the way up here, these are the Norwegian states, Norway, Sweden, and Finland. And again, here's Belgium and into the Netherlands, Paris, France right here. And again, to put this in context, that's at essentially 50 degrees north. That's right here is the Canadian border. We don't often think of France, especially Paris, being almost a Canadian latitude. Now, if we go a little bit further, what we're going to also see then is that, again, I want to bracket this again, 30 degrees north, 40, and 50. So we can kind of see where we are. Again, Chicago lies just north of 40 degrees. Again, going back out, what we can see is Canada. Again, almost all of Canada is north of 50 degrees latitude. Now let's go over again to Europe. Here's that same 50 degrees of latitude, and you'll notice that virtually all of Russia lies well above that 50 degrees of latitude, as does Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, and much of the United Kingdom. Okay, we only have a little bit of it right here. So latitude really is very different. Europe really should be understood as a northern latitude. And the question then becomes, why do we conceive of most of it as so temperate? Well, in large part, the other thing that I want you to think about when we look at this is most of the United States is a long way from water. Here's the Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico, and the Pacific. And so much of North America, certainly most of the United States, is what we would call a continental location, far from water. Now contrast that with most of Europe, and Europe is what we call a peninsular region. That is, that almost all of Europe lies very close to a water body. In other words, we can't get far from water, and water, especially marine water, that is, the oceans and the major seas here, the Mediterranean, the Black, the Baltic, the North Sea, all of these water bodies act to moderate the climate and make it a little bit more manageable. And so we don't see the extreme changes or variations in temperature that we see in North America because of our distance from water. Okay, continental versus marine environments. Now, if we look at Russia, it's an even more extreme example of continental locations. It is both very northern and, for most of the interior, again, what we generally consider in terms of the Siberian region, it is extremely far from any water body. The only water body near it is up here in the Arctic Ocean, and the Arctic is, for the most part, frozen throughout much of the year. The other point I want to make is, again, here's 50 degrees latitude. How far north Moscow, the major city in Russia, is, and how far north St. Petersburg is. Now, the important thing about St. Petersburg is that it is a coastal city, and that becomes very important in terms of the development of it and the connections for Russia. So again, that's the first concept that I want you to understand, that of the latitudinal variations within Europe